gloriously sunny day outside Seattle. I have a lot on my plate right now, but I'm super excited to be here. And I'm definitely going to and was utilizing this rare occurrence of sunshine in the winter time around Seattle to be out in nature. And yesterday went for a ride with, or a drive and a walk with my little one, Eno, who's next to me here. So first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for everyone being here. Thank you for subscribers. If this information, reaches you and aligns with you, please, like it, leave comments, leave ideas, leave, questions in the comments. Looking forward to engaging more. Today, I'm excited to talk about my Ph.D. institute, the California Institute of Integral Studies, and two omnidimensional authors that acted in unison for much of the rest of their lifetime after they met. And they are incredibly foundational. In fact, they are the foundation, and their theories and the theory of integral yoga is very much the foundation of my institute, CIIS, through one of their premier scholars, Haridas Chaudhuri. And I had been feeling not just called from my master's alumni, Naropa University, which is a Buddhist university in Boulder, Colorado, and their disembodied poetics, the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, where I finished an MFA, of the first epic in a 4-part series that I've been channeling from future humans since 2012, or around 2012. And my work there and my connection, my advancing practices and lives, heteronyms, dimensionality during that program led me to CIIS. And this is just a little bit of backstory for you and why this is so important for me and what is going on, within my PhD journey, within multiple heteronyms of mine and this embodiment, and why I was brought to CIIS from Harvard. I had absolutely no idea. The pandemic, first and foremost, the pandemic, all you have to say is 2020 and what happened. Hopefully they don't shut this video down because of that. But basically, that was one of the main catalysts, as well as being a part of Naropa, becoming initiated into the ancient knowledges through and with Naropa. That led me to CIIS. So from the very get-go, in fact, a couple of my cohort members who hopefully I will be in touch with very soon. We've been trying to organize something for months. But two of my cohort members from my first year at CIIS, we started calling forth, there's something within the history of CIIS that we don't know, we don't understand, but we can feel it. We feel it all around us and through us. And I was very, very adamant with my program's dean that we're looking for something. We're looking for some grounding in something. And I know that my two cohort members, if you're watching this or when you watch this, you'll understand, because I finally found what the foundation of CIIS is, what the entire vessel was based off of when I took a course last summer about today's omnidimensional authors. And I'm titling this one To Become One, because it is about the Indian philosophers, poets, and occultists, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, or what her birth name is Mira Alfasa. So, without further ado, that's kind of a little bit of the backstory, also kind of speaking to some of my cohort members that I've invited to this video, because I found the foundation last summer. And this is a course that we had CIIS board members at, because they were trying to we have a current scholar within the CIIS community who is also a scholar of Haridas Chaudhuri and Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and Debashish, and he has been holding courses for years on and off, but it's not been a part of the regular curriculum. And what I had been feeling is, I was missing the why of CIIS. I knew that I had been brought there from my very, very hard-earned Harvard trajectory, which I'm actually still a part of, but in a different way. In fact, through this research with omnidimensional authorship, I am still with my independent study at Harvard and what is actually coming into my vision as a second PhD. So yeah, there's that. And that just showed up lately. I have Jupiter in my sun sign tropical of Gemini trining my natal Jupiter right now. So luck be mine. And apparently this path that I've been on around academics is just not only aligned and just abundant, and I'm so, so grateful for. Man, Jupiter is just saving my ass right now with my Saturn return. Love you, Saturn. Crossing all my T's, dotting all my I's, but Jupiter got my back this year. And I am like moving into this, like intense time. I already met with the instructor at CIIS that I'm going to be asking to be, I've already asked them, they've already accepted to be my chair for my dissertation, but that I'm going to propose to the committee and the reasoning why. And she's so grounding. She's just so good, so gracious. Like, you couldn't ask for a better soul than this person, honestly. Like, I am blessed that this is what is aligning for me, and I am like fully in this next cycle with Jupiter. I completed all of those past cycles. I am moved on. Like, I am moved on. If you are coming in here with malicious means or services, pound rocks, because it's being returned to you 1,000-fold just effortlessly. And so anyways, there's just so much beautiful stuff going on, and I'm so, so freaking grateful just for all of it. And when you're living omnidimensionally, time is irrelevant. So there is just so much interwovenness, integral. This work and what I'm going to get into with Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, this is the work. This is the work that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother did that have led to other prominent philosophers like Ken Wilber, who I knew when I lived in Boulder, when I had my environmental media website, and I was friends with his second wife. Yes, he's had 2 wives at least. There's so much stuff going on that's integral, that's interwoven, that I even knew back then in the early 2000s, that I knew in past lifetimes. And this is all stuff that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother talk about in their multiple publications. And we'll get into why I'm calling this 2 as 1. But really setting up this foundation for how is this interwoven with my life, with my PhD path? How am I seeing these things like interrupt, and be invoked, and why they've come to me as these omnidimensional authors, and why I'm still pursuing this additional, concomitant research that I started with, but which has shifted into a different dissertation and initial research within compassionate technology. But that omnidimensional authorship is interwoven. It is who I am. I am an omnidimensional author. So are Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So are so many other people, which I am presenting this series and now applying to present within academia for so many different reasons. Anyways, obviously you can tell I'm lit up, lit up behind me, just like aura flowing, like I have one solid month where my rocket boosters are about to fucking take off this year, celestially, astrologically too, and just wait for it. Seriously, I had to put my Princess Diana hat back on. Yes, this is a replica from Rowing Blazers out of New York. Gotcha. I love you guys. Who did a replica of Princess Diana. Rest her soul in peace. Love that fucking soul in this lifetime. Absolutely just one of those like childhood, like, gurus and saints. Went through so much shit, as have I, and, just absolutely blessed. Had to wear this royal insignia, feeling really fucking royal, got my green going, just like abundance fucking everywhere, like good luck upon me, lucky me, lucky me, lucky me. And so grateful, so grateful. And this is all wrapping into Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, because I had been waffling back and forth, feeling disjointed, feeling not grounded in, my PhD path for the first 2.5 years. And it wasn't because of the instructors or anything like that. It was because this essential piece was missing as to how CIIS's vessel and magic and spell was cast. And so this last summer, when I took Debashish's course, which I have highly, highly recommended, so did all of the students practically that took this course, that it be a core curriculum course for every single student that goes to CIIS and beyond, because not only was it the vision of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to do this, they have and had an education center at their ashram in Pondicherry for over 100 years, or close to. I think it started in the 30s by the Mother. And we'll get into all of this because it's already almost 10:15 and I have so many notes, like so many notes, pages. So I'm keeping this to around an hour, you guys, but so much to talk about with these two souls and the becoming of one and integral and all of this stuff that's led to other, prominent, noteworthy philosophers like Ken Wilber and his integral theory and the communities around it and such. This is their work. This is what my institute is based off of. This is the PhD that I'm in. This is the omnidimensionality that I am fully living in with multiple heteronyms, and that I'm paralleling concomitant research for one PhD and probably now another one. And it's a lot sometimes, but this is, and I am, and I have been being called to and being exactly the work that Sri Aurobindo talked about and wrote about and published about 100 years ago. And so when I took that course, a course that I truly believe that CIIS, in their infinite current wisdom, will place and the board will place as a foundational course for everybody entering CIIS, so that we can radiate this knowledge out and beyond. I can't even get into all of the different theories and the different knowingness and beingness that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother were. I am focusing on them separately, individually, and collectively as omnidimensional authors for this particular live. But just know, just tons of books, tons of publications, the work. They were doing the work. They're doing the work that I'm doing. This is why I've put out my this is my 10th year. I'm in 2025. I'm in my 10th year of being a polygamist, of being married to myself. And why another reason 10 years ago, and even a little bit before that, before I even married myself and became a polygamist, let alone interviewed other people, let alone wrote a book about it, why I believe I was probably called to this. I was called to this type of work in multiple lifetimes. This is the work that monks and nuns and priests and religious people and gurus have done for tens of thousands of years. You're married to God or goddess. You're married to yourself. You're married to the work. It's not a relationship with another person. It's a relationship with all and beyond all. And they absolutely found that within themselves and did the work, and then they found that within each other. So with that as like a backstory for why I'm here, why I'm doing this video, why Sri Aurobindo and the Mother are absolutely omnidimensional authors like me, and I've put them into the canon. They are going up on the Cannabis Trove, and I've really been having to parse out multiple pieces of theirs because they have individual publications that they both made. Then there's collective works that integrate, all of what they are and were. So there's multiple pieces that need to go up on the cannabistro.com. So definitely check out cannabistro.com. That's where the omnidimensional author canon is being created and updated. And just know that some of the pieces that I'm talking about today from one or both of them are going up on cannabistro.com. And yeah, they've been a part of the canon, and I've known it since last summer. In fact, when I took Debashish's course about Haridas Chaudhuri, the founder of CIIS, one of the prominent scholars of the 20th century of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, I was tapped the fuck in. I was tapped the fuck in every single time I even attempted to think about the class, let alone being in the class. Like, I was so immersed in all the dimensions and all. I was like that. It was like that just immediately. And it's so good to finally know that that is the foundation of where I am and where I'm finishing my first PhD, because it's very appropriate. Let's just say that. Harvard, I got you. I know where your, vessel and your magics come from and your spells. I'm very, very aware. And I'm very triggered on the East Coast with Saturn, my astrocartography and my Saturn being aligned with the East Coast. I'm very aware of when I step into that too. That's a different beingness. And I love you. I love you, Harvard. I know exactly what this spell is. I see all the way through it and around it, And CIIS is holding a very different intention in this world and the dimensions. Very, very different and very accessible. I keep telling people that my abilities, omnidimensional authors processes, and our alternative abilities are all things to be remembered, that you can continually practice to remember at better and more intricate states. And it just keeps getting better and better. Like it really does. Things just keep lining up, man. Seriously, the more that you practice your omnidimensional author, practices and alternative abilities. And Sri Aurobindo and the Mother especially knew this. So let's get into them. So Sri Aurobindo was born in 1872 and died in 1950. He's largely known as being a prominent poet, Indian poet and philosopher and guru. Like I've said, he's the foundation of my current PhD program at CIIS. He studied at King's College in Cambridge. So Sri Aurobindo was a very learned, very studied, very mind knowledge-centric individual from what I understand. And I'm going to preface everything else that I'm going to say as I'm coming from my understanding and remembering of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I am in no way a scholar of either one of these people. I am doing my own research on them, specifically about omnidimensional authorship and their presence in an omnidimensional author canon because of utilizing and publishing about their alternative abilities and their translations during their alternative abilities, especially the Mother. But Sri Aurobindo already understanding these alternative abilities and also writing about them in the context of being them. It is very evident from many of their writings, which I have not read their comprehensive works at all. The few that I have read, it is very, very evident that they both were operating from this state of being within and through and everything, all dimensions, all dimensionality, and beyond. And so they largely did not always describe alternative ability processes like a lot of poets and authors in the omnidimensional author canon do, but somewhat. They're already coming from the other side when they're talking. So, and you'll get this when I recite some of the texts. But Sri Aurobindo, he's largely known for integral yoga or supramental yoga. Integral yoga is what we commonly understand it in what is called, I guess, in English speaking, translations. But he was very learned, very practiced. He kind of got into a little bit of some skiffs with the law, especially because, you have to understand Sri Aurobindo and the Mother were also a part of this time period of the late 19th century into the early 20th century when all of the psychical society and the occult and esoteric knowledges were also really being raised and heightened, especially in, Western countries, in Europe, in the Americas. And based off of a lot of like ancient and indigenous teachings of the East through Asiatic and Indian and Australian, kind of resurgence, right, through academia. This is when parapsychology as an academic field came into being. So they were like in the height of this, right? So they were speaking to their own people in a lot of the ways. There were people that were, just everywhere kind of talking and publishing about a lot of this stuff. So that was the time period that they were in and that they were being raised up in both of their different work and then, collectively. But he's known for integral yoga. And this is I'm going to break down kind of an overview of what I guess you could call integral yoga. It's basically his theory is that human evolution is at this intermediate stage right now, and that there are different ways to compartmentalize where humans are right now, but it is this re-evolution, this remembering. I call it remembering because everything is everywhere. We already know it. We just have to get into the right frequency and vibration to be able to have that axiom shift and be able to remember something. But we're in this phase where different individuals and then more and more collectively, as a species, we're going through this kind of intermediate stage where we're starting to become hyper aware. We're getting into supramental mind, and there's these different compartmentalizations of how to get there, how to practice where you are in it. And so, and basically that we're moving towards remembering this, not just divine nature of ourselves, but divine nature of everything, anything and everything. That the goal of integral yoga is to integrate the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of ourselves to manifest the divine while we're embodied. And Sri Aurobindo is commonly quoted as saying that all life is yoga. All life is yoga. And if you're kind of like me, where you're not, a scholar into what is yoga, you could think, oh, that's just like a physical exercise, right? Well, no, that's just one part of it. There's multiple aspects of yoga. This encompasses, like Sri Aurobindo said, all life is yoga, right? So he considered that there are three types of beingness, and I would say that's an oversimplification, because in energy and frequency, just the gradient, the circle of gradiency of beingness is just, it's an oversimplification, but I know that it makes it easier for people to be able to kind of bite on and chew. And so those are, while we're embodied, this is while we're embodied, right? Physical, which is called the outer, the inner, which is called the mental, or which we would consider mental, and the psychic, which is the connection, the bridge to divinity, to the spiritual. So, like I said, just innately, they were already operating from this phase. They were already in integral remembering. So they broke it down. Sri Aurobindo broke it down into a simpler understanding. And he was very, very well learned. He wasn't just traditionally Western, King's College, Cambridge, England, well learned. But, he had been born and raised around religious and spiritual theories and practices, let alone that he went into the depths of others. As a poet, he predominantly wrote poetry to begin with. So it was always there, but he, was very well learned in a lot of different understandings, which can be a serious activation. The mind and knowledge can be a serious activation of the remembering of integral. It doesn't always activate everybody. In fact, even Sri Aurobindo said that, tapping into your psychical with things like clairvoyance and stuff will help catapult and catalyze, you into the depths of remembering of your own divinity, first and foremost, self-realization. The self-realization of yourself as divine, as interconnected with all of divinity, and then the outside being. But we'll get into that in a second. So he said that there's these three parts of ourselves while we're embodied. He also said that there's three main difficulties for mankind while we're embodied, is that we only have partial self-awareness. We're not fully self-aware. And there's a lot of having to do with consciousness and ego construct within that. The other one is that partial awareness of other beings, and that has a high level to do with compassion. And why I'm doing and focusing, why I believe that my first dissertation and Ph.D. on compassionate technology is so hyper-focused within the context and the definition and the spell within compassion. Because compassion right now in the 5 elements, even though there's more, and I'm going to prove that, the 5 elements that are recognized right now within compassion itself, as, compassion as the definition of you, and the 5 elements of it that have you being sympathetic and empathetic for other beings that are, suffering. Those 5 elements are based off of self-compassion and Dr. Kristen Neff's work in the early 2000s around self-compassion. So it is an understanding of self-realization, self-understanding, first and foremost, that helps you understand and have compassion for that outside of you. And Sri Aurobindo clearly talked about this. Now, this is an old Asiatic, Buddhist knowledge anyways. So even 100 years of research, or even recent research, it's all bringing back up and remembering in different ways tens of thousands of years of understanding. That self-understanding, first and foremost, is what helps you understand, become a better person to others that are around you, more integral, more, compassionate, more conscious of others and otherness and dimensionality, like all forms of otherness, when you are in a remembering of your own divinity and sovereignty within yourself first. So then the third part is evolving past mortality and materiality. And honestly, if there are embodiments that are remembering how to move past mortality and materiality, easier and quicker and better, it's omnidimensional authors. It's anybody that is using and tapping into, let alone practicing regularly, our alternative abilities. When I say alternative abilities, right now, there's a lot of alternative abilities. They might not all be encapsulated in this, but I'm talking about divinations, synchronicities, astral traveling, the clairs like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairtangency. There's 8 clairs that have been diagnosed. The mancies, telepathies, all of this are alternative abilities. It is relinquishing yourself of ego and a self and tapping into the all, the beyond all. Some people call it Akashic records, becoming a channel, becoming, a translator of receiving anything and everything. So he said that those are the 3 difficulties. He also laid out that there's 4 predominant ways to be able to evolve. And these are all yogas. So the yoga of divine work, one's work and the focus on work. Again, this is why I have brought up why I believe that I was called to become a polygamist and to not take a traditional route of, finding a relationship with one other person or even multiple people, which is even more distracting in my regard. And for some reason, people that are polygamists thinks that a polygamist is like aligned with them, which I guess polygamists might be, but it's up to each polygamist to define why it is. My definition and my why of being a polygamist and being married to myself, 10 years this year, whoop whoop, is because I felt this calling to do this work. I felt this calling that the rest of this life, I had already taken enough selfish time for myself, modeling, acting, doing all this stuff when I was younger. I was luckily, amplified, living in Boulder, having my spiritual, return with my Saturn return in my early 30s, just having like a serious fucking come to Jesus, played a Pluto moment, Pluto-Saturn moment in this lifetime, and all the lifetimes just come rushing back in and just being like, no, you're here for more, you're here for more, you're here for more, quit fucking around. And it just nagged at me, trying to fit myself into these modern societal norms for years still, and it just kept just eating at me. My soul was just like, come on, person, let's go, let's fucking go, you're here for more. And even after marrying myself, I still wassailed back and forth with having a relationship with one other person. And I'm not saying never, okay? Because I'm not silly enough to not say never about stuff like that. But you really need to, and I wrote a book about this, recommending that everybody marries themselves first. Because that's when you really understand not only who you are, what's important for you, what your boundaries are, what you're willing to accept from other people or not. And that assurity, that sense of fucking groundedness within your own soul first and your divinity, your sovereignty, remembering that shit. Like for real. Past all of this bullshit that they keep trying to distract us and manipulate us with. They're doing that to keep our power and control from us individually and collectively. No more. 2020 hindsight, baby. We got 2020 hindsight now. Make that shit count in your life. Remember your divinity and your sovereignty. Do your self-realization. Get into the work. Get in touch with your fucking passions, why your soul is here. Don't wait. You can't wait anymore. More than likely, you have chosen a path one way or another for the rest of this lifetime at least. If this is a soul calling for another lifetime or another 10 lifetimes from now, don't fucking wait. They are keeping power and control over us from our own divinity and sovereignty so that we won't be able to go out there and shine like the fucking gods and goddesses that we actually are. There is no time to waste anymore, okay? You be you in this world when you're embodied, because it's a fucking gift to me, to everything, for you to be you. as long as you're doing it. Don't be doing stupid shit against other people, right? So anyways, thank you for coming in. Thank you for saying hi. Thank you for being here. So I'm still on Sri Aurobindo and his kind of breakdown of his basic theories. So yoga of divine work. Know that work. Know that work within yourself. Know that work, why you're here. Why is your soul fucking here? Get connected to that. Don't be distracted with relationships with other people and stuff. They're either for you or they're not for you. You know from the get-go pretty much. Instinctually, if you're tapped into your instincts, quit being distracted. TikTok, not TikTok, who gives a fuck? Okay? You do you in this world. You'll find the platform. You'll find the community. Don't get distracted with all this bullshit still. Seriously. So anyways, the second way to evolve is yoga of integral knowledge. This is remembering your divinity. This is remembering your soul's sovereignty. This is remembering that you are a divine fucking soul. They can never take your life because you're eternal and love. Okay? Nobody can take that. Nobody can take your soul. They'll try. Demons will try and inhabit that body. Demons will try to manipulate you, and all sorts of nefarious actors will try to manipulate and keep power and control over you. They're doing it all the time. All the time. Not when you remember your soul sovereignty, man. Doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter. Your boundaries are absolute. Because you remember. So, yoga of integral knowledge. This is that self-observation and analysis. If you can't look at yourself first and get really fucking clear with who you are, why you're here, even if you don't know what it all looks like, it doesn't matter. If you know in your soul, this is why I'm fucking here. This is what lights me up. This is what I love to do. Fuck all y'all. This is what I'm gonna do. This is what lights me up. You have to have this self-observation and analysis and knowledge. You have to know when, oh yeah, I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it right. Because believe me, the celestials and universe and probably other people are going to tell you, not doing it right. Figure that shit out for yourself first. Yoga of divine love. This is love of God. This is like, you see, feel, know, love everywhere. You go outside and you see a fucking butterfly, you see a tree, you see a blade of grass, you see a fucking dog, you hear a dog bark, you watch a video on YouTube and it shows you something about some place you've never been to in this lifetime or remembered, but it just fucking is awe-inspiring for you. It does not matter. Natural world, celestials, everything that is not ego, man-made, constructed, and destructive and manipulative, even man-made, obviously. Babies, other humans, you know, shit like that, right? Natural. Love of God and goddess, okay? Love of God and goddess. And then the fourth one is yoga of self-perfection. It's kind of funny that the 4 steps, according to Sri Aurobindo, of us evolving is like the fourth one is self-perfection, okay? And this is your transformation into a divine being, into your full remembering of you being a divine being. It usually, according to Sri Aurobindo the Mother, has a lot of psychical gifts and alternative abilities that start coming with it and getting remembered and practiced and lived. It's the bridge, baby. It's the bridge in embodiment. And I absolutely 100,000% concur with this, with his theory, with their theories. Absolutely. I'm living it. I love it. It's the flow, man. It's the flow. This is the fucking flow. What artists talk about, what creatives talk about, what people that have been successful in different aspects of life have talked about, what gurus talk about. You remembering your divine soul and your connection to anything and everything and all the dimensionality. And it just doesn't fucking matter because you remember that you are divine, that our souls are divine, that we're in union with everything and everybody all the time. It just brings such a peace. Seriously, it brings such a peace. You can see through people's ego bullshit so quick. And yeah, you still have it. You still have it when you're embodied. And when you're out of embodiment, it's even better. It's like so amazing. It's like you can't, like, my body feels like it's going to fucking blow up when I am trying to come back into embodiment from being in that remembered state outside of ego, outside of beyond, hooked up with all. It's magic as fuck. I love it when I'm in those states. But I have work to do here. So I love being embodied too. I love aspects of materiality, mortality. It keeps me in check, right? It keeps me focused on the work. But that self-perfection, you got to turn inward. Marry yourself first. Anyways, that's a little bit about Sri Aurobindo, okay? Let's get into the mother. It's already 10:40, fuck. Okay, so the mother, she was born Mira Alfasa. She was born in 1878 and died in 1973. My birth year. Whoop, whoop. Anyways, yeah, I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, did I reincarnate from the mother? And I was like, no. Like, I remember my last lifetime in the 40s as a little Jewish girl in the ghetto that died from starvation and exposure. It was horrible, and all I remember hearing is like GI music and American music and whatever those radio stations were, coming from, you know, another part of the city, and hearing it and feeling like it was such peace and bliss, and that I wish that I could have been there. And so no, I'm not the mother reincarnated, but it's kind of funny that she passed away when I was being born. So from another, you know, death becomes a birth. Anyways, the mother was from a Sephardic Jewish family from Turkey. They moved to Paris, and she was born in Paris, and she was raised in Paris. And she's known for being Sri Aurobindo's counterpart for the later part of his life, and for starting the Sri Aurobindo Ashram and Auroville in Pondicherry, India. What's interesting about the mother and what Sri Aurobindo has written about in multiple publications since he met her, which was in 1914, when she moved to Pondicherry with her then husband for his political gains or whatever. But when she was a child, from the time that she was a child, and authors and people that have interviewed her, and she's written about it, that from the time that she was a child, she remembered her alternative abilities, and that she was experiencing otherness, other beingness, and possibly dimensionality. I haven't gotten into that yet with the mother, but she was definitely experiencing things outside of, at that point, human understanding, or of, you know, social condition norms, right? Let's just say that. Look at this aura, look at this light, look at this fucking light, right? But she kept this stuff private when she was a child, just like I did. Like, I didn't keep it private when I was little. But when I started hearing and feeling the adults in my life being condescending, or, you know, being off-putting and being negative in some way, shape, or form towards me expressing my alternative abilities and communicating or understanding otherness and other beingness, even though they utilized my skills to fix things on the farm. They utilized my skills in some ways, and in most other ways, it was negative in their eyes. And I think that it was probably just scary because they haven't realized it, and it was against the norms. So after I got to be a little bit older as a child, I started learning very quickly that it wasn't safe to tell the adults the things that I was experiencing or doing. The same way that the mother did. She kept them from anybody because at the time she felt like she would be ostracized, that she would be committed, that she would, you know, be shown as somebody that was having mental problems and having to be, you know, addressed. So I didn't feel that in the 70s and 80s, but I definitely felt from the adults that were around me that what I was sharing with them was not something that they wanted to have shared with them. They didn't care about it, and sometimes they outright disliked it and made it well known. So I I mean, I understand how the mother felt, but from when she had a very, very vivid dream as a teenager in which she thought that she had seen Krishna. And turns out she really felt that she was, that she was seeing Sri Aurobindo. She saw Krishna within Sri Aurobindo. And it was when she met him, probably in 1914, that she realized that that dream that she had had as a teenager was actually Sri Aurobindo. As Krishna, Sri Aurobindo, was coming to her as a child or as a teen. But when she was younger, before she had met Sri Aurobindo, she was being raised in Paris. She was very attributed to the arts. She attended university or college and prep school through artistic talent and focus. She did start getting into the occult because she was having these experiences. They didn't stop from the time that she was a child. She kept having them. She had that major vision when she was a teenager. So she started getting into the occult and credits reading the Bhagavad Gita as one of the kind of premier ways that she started understanding the alternative abilities that she couldn't talk to anybody about, that she wasn't, communicating with anybody about. But then she started getting into the occult, and notably through Max Theon's cosmic movement. And that, in fact, that Max Theon, I believe, is who introduced her to her husband, who brought her to Sri Aurobindo in Pondicherry, under the auspices of his political games, which he didn't end up winning, in which there was a whole bunch of turmoil because this was India at the turn of the early part of the 20th century. And if anybody knows anything about that, it's just a shit show between the British rule and India and French rule. And excuse me. It was just a lot going on back then. They lived in Japan for a part-time and then were able to go back to India. It was a lot, this is during Gandhi and everything too. So Sri Aurobindo got in trouble when he was younger with the law for, anti-British rule, even though he went and studied in King's College in Cambridge. So anyways, there's kind of a little bit of waffling back and forth, moving back and forth because of all the turmoil and everything between the mother and her husband, and then Sri Aurobindo, and people having to physically move because of the different wars and the things that were going on around the Indian, Asiatic continent. But by the time the 20s rolled around, she was fully engaged with Sri Aurobindo. I'm not sure when she got a divorce, or if she ever did. But Sri Aurobindo recognized in the mother, I believe, and it seems like from the writings that I have read, and scholars correct me or add to this if you want, that it seems like because of the mother's alternative abilities, that Sri Aurobindo could already see that she was in touch with otherness, with divinity, with everything in and all and around, integral, to embodiment. So he started calling her the mother sometime in the 20s. And then she helped form the ashram, Sri Aurobindo Ashram, and gave her complete control of the ashram in the 1930s. Apparently there's some stuff with like the early followers of Sri Aurobindo that they weren't maybe, sided with the mother, were questioning, were, not 1,000%, but Sri Aurobindo was like, he was like, no, this is the person, And even I do want to preface and say that even though both of them really published their own pieces and their own work, Sri Aurobindo, like I said, was a very learned, very well-read, and very published author by the time he even met the mother. And the mother published quite a few pieces as well afterwards. She was very learned in the arts, taught in Western Parisian circles. But But even though both of them published separately, many collections have been gathered since, especially that are of a collective, uniform, understanding, very integral, right? And that's why I kind of named this Two Become One, because I've already talked about Fernando Pessoa. I started this Omnidimensional Author series with Fernando Pessoa, the poet, the Portuguese poet, and his over 78 heteronyms that he published multiple pieces, but he kept hidden too. Because even though this was, the time of the Psychical Society and parapsychology coming up, in the ranks as an actual academic field, and there were so many different things, cosmic movement, there was so much like resurgence of alternative abilities of individual soul divinity and sovereignty, and of practices and theories, and to be able to try and get back to that remembering and to that regular part of people incorporating alternative abilities and connection back to divinity within their lives. A lot of these people hid this stuff. They really did. Sri Aurobindo did not. He did not. He had already gone through his bout with the law and everything regarding British rule or British, British rule, and just, being able to be back in homeland and to have that sovereignty of their homeland. So he was already writing from a remembered state, like a fully remembered state, an integral state. By the time he even met the mother, that was already, a secure foundation. But the mother had been hiding for a long time. So the real publications from the mother came about afterwards. But a lot of what they wrote, these two were physically with each other and around each other all of the time. Sri Aurobindo recognized integral yoga within the mother, and the mother very much already had known that from the time that she met him. Even though she had been expressing other aspects in this connection, is this bridge, this third part of self, the psychical, or the psychic part. So they really saw each other as these, matched counterparts in a lot of ways that were mirroring each other, maybe in different levels of their remembering or, their evolution, but very much at this point of remembering their divinity and their sovereignty and their integral connection to everything. And so Sri Aurobindo wrote about the mother, and the mother wrote about Sri Aurobindo's, theories and work. And so they started to really merge. And even since their passings, more and more have the collections been this convergence of their individual works. And so, I talked about my embodiment with the heteronyms, and also feeling very much placed and aligned with Fernando Pessoa in his multiple heteronyms, one embodiment, with multidimensionality, with many beingnesses coming through us and living through one embodiment. But I thought that this was interesting, and it struck me as, another way that twin flames or, soulmates or things, concepts like that come about, where we actually see that there's these two divine beings that recognize this mirroring of each other, as divine beings, as being remembered as integral with everything and with God and Goddess, and that they were individually living and producing, but that their lives become more and more one, right? Even in, it's such an interesting concept, because it's such the different, right? One body, multiple heteronyms, two bodies becoming, one predominant source of and collection of information that weaves upon each other, right? So, okay, so a couple minutes left here. I'm going to get into some of the books that you can see this from, some of the publications that you can see their omnidimensional authorship in, and why, right? So the first book that really integrated the mother and vice versa was called The Mother, from 1927, that Sri Aurobindo wrote. And you can see this dual presence within it. there's other books that they had where their individual pieces and works are interwoven with each other, such as Prayers and Meditations from 1932, Basis of Yoga 1936, Synthesis of Yoga 1950, The Life Divine, the edited version from 1955, and The Integral Education, a compilation of both of their works in 1982. So there's a lot of compilation works, but really when you're reading them, you can understand their individuality, but you can feel this interwovenness between the two of them. It's like two voices started speaking one more and more, right? And I just think that this is just such a brilliant, concept within the world, and it's very powerful and it's very strong, because there were aspects of the mother that Sri Aurobindo hadn't really, he had fully realized, because he was already at this point of like integral, awareness and experience, but he hadn't explored them through the psychical yet. And really, after meeting the mother and vice versa, she had explored and had been living these psychical experiences, but didn't have the encapsulation of what these different levels of beingness and otherness and bridging between them were necessarily happening. So he answered her questions and she answered his, which is just brilliant. It's like these two souls finally like found each other, and all of a sudden just like everything started coming out for humanity. They were doing the work. They both had this commitment of self-realization and doing the work, and they did it individually, but collectively is where the rubber met the road for everybody else. Like, that's just when everything started erupting for them. Things settled about all of the transitions with the different countries. They both were together. The ashram came together, then the education, then eventually Auroville, this great vision that they both had of this external city outside the parameters of any kind of, religious or social expectation or norms or laws. And Auroville still exists. We had a student last summer in Debashish's course about Haridas Chaudhuri and Sri Aurobindo that was, zooming in from Pondicherry. So it's really brilliant how all of this stuff actually sometimes does. You can see the interwovenness of it. Anyways, I want to read this quote because this is one of the reasons why, there's multiple publications. They're going to be up on cannabistro.com, but this is one of the publications that shows exactly how they were already thinking and living and remembering, that is tied directly to Omnidimensional Authors and Alternative Abilities. It comes from the Synthesis of Yoga by Sri Aurobindo. And in the Internet Archive, their copy is on page 48. It says, quote, "By this integral realization and liberation, the perfect harmony of the results of knowledge, love, and works. For there is aligned the complete release from ego and identification in being with the one in all and beyond all." That is exactly what happens when you release your ego and you become a conduit for receiving or communications or communicating with otherness, with beingness, with anything, dimensionality, from different dimensions, from different understandings. You release your ego, you get to this point where sometimes there's like a million different paths for how you can get to this remembering. But you get to the space which many, many other omnidimensional authors talk about, where there's nothing of you. There is nothing of your ego. You have completely displaced your identification, the you of you, in an embodiment, and you have combined with all and beyond all. So that right there, just one of the many, quotes from one of the publications that they absolutely already knew omnidimensional author processes. And obviously, we're both publishing, so they're omnidimensional authors. A couple other publications that I wanted to, make sure I put in here. From The Powers Within, which was published in 1999, is a compilation of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother works from 1872 to 1950. They talk about the basis of OA processes such as clairvoyance. There is brief, addresses of alternative abilities under the words and the spellings that we know, such as clairvoyance. And they also talk about this in The Psychic Being, the publication called The Psychic Being, published in 2010, also about clairvoyance. And in fact, what I wanted to say about that is it says, quote, "The soul, the psychic being, once having reached the human consciousness, cannot go back to the inferior animal consciousness anymore that it can go back into a tree or an ephemeral insect. What is true is that some part of the vital energy or the formed instrumental consciousness or nature can and very frequently does so if it is strongly attached to anything in the earth life, embodiment. This may account for some cases of immediate rebirth with full memory in human form also. Ordinarily, it is only by yogic development, so those multiple yogas that I talked about, work, divine love, self-realization, it is only by yogic development or by clairvoyance, alternative abilities, that the exact memory of past lives can be brought back. So in that regard, he was talking, Sri Aurobindo was talking in Letters on Yoga. And Letters on Yoga 1, this is specifically coming from Rebirth, from the publication Letters on Yoga 1 about rebirth. Sri Aurobindo is talking about how alternative abilities, such as clairvoyance, will bring back that memory. Sometimes it could be like an immediate rebirth, which I've experienced multiple times, in which we actually can parse out and compartmentalize now as astrals, because that's a category within alternative abilities for omnidimensional authors. So anyways, I know this is a lot. It's already an hour long, and I just really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me about omnidimensional authors and a little bit about the omnidimensional authors, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I highly encourage you to look at any of their works. A lot of their works you can find on Internet Archive. Auroville, the community that the Mother physically got put together before she passed away in 73, based off of the visions that her and Sri Aurobindo had for this very special place on the earth. Before he passed in 1950, she had it manifest. It is out there. I've met students from it that are part of my Ph.D. institutes, California Institute of Integral Studies, CIIS. And yeah, these two omnidimensional authors that are the foundation of my institute, their theories, their practices, integral yoga, like it absolutely is integral. They were both poets, authors, gurus, philosophers, and have provided humanity just a beautiful, beautiful understanding, a simplistic breakdown of how we can start looking at and the different ways we can start evolving to come back into our divine knowing and our divine sovereignty and consciousness, and our union with everything. And this was over 100 years ago that they started publishing as omnidimensional authors. So I'm very grateful for you to be here. I'm very grateful for their work, for the institute that has come up around their work, and for the support for me, for my PhD path, at least this first one, let alone the second one that's already out there too. And I encourage you to look in more. They have multiple beautiful pieces that speak about a lot of different aspects of life. And I encourage, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother scholars to, add more to the comment section of this video as well, because I'm only addressing certain elements of their alternative abilities within publications, knowing that they were all, omnidimensional authors, that they were actively utilizing, practicing, living their alternative abilities through what they have published, for humanity. So anyways, I am going to go out and enjoy this wonderful sunshine today. I'm so happy. It's sunny. I love it. All the best to you and yours whenever you're watching this. And thank you for being here.